I'm actually thinking now that I did my calculations wrong still, and it should have been a lot more than £42 million because I think I was looking at my monthly amount but using that as an annual amount.
That can't be more than that. Because well, I
Okay,
don't know how many yachts,
I mean, gotta have all the
country
yachts,
houses.
private jets.
Yes.
Okay,
Uh,
we are talking about retirement and how to plan for retirement, which sounds really boring when I say it like that. But I think this started with talking about not wanting to retire. When we spoke last week, we talked about working for as long as possible because what did you say?
yeah.
A retirement date is an expiry date.
Yes, I think. Yeah. That's how I think about it. Yeah.
So I've always been quite hyper aware of planning for retirement. I think since I started working and earning a salary, I had a financial advisor approach me. So even when I was earning 3,000 rand a month, I started putting money aside. So not much, obviously, on 3,000 rand a month, but it's been part of my habit forever to put a little bit of money aside for the
Mm,
future. But recently, I've been doing some calculations, looking at what my state pension will be when I retire, looking at what I'd get out from my private retirement annuities, and realizing that I don't think it's enough money for me to maintain a lifestyle that I've become accustomed to or that I'm comfortable with. So that scares me a little bit that I don't know if I am really prepared for the future. And it's one of the reasons that I thought this could be a good topic to talk about.
yeah. There's some really shocking statistics about around how many people can actually afford to retire. Um, I can't remember what the statistic is in the UK, but it is not more than 20% people who can comfortably retire, maintain the same lifestyle. In
Yeah,
South Africa, it's obviously shockingly low. It's like 6% or
yeah,
something like that. And I don't even think that 6% is a true reflection because a lot of these um, calculations that are done are based on at least 70 or 80% of your current earnings
income.
or
Yeah,
your current income. In terms of, well, you have to downscale, um, and it could be that they make certain assumptions. Why would you only need 70, 80%? Well, you're not necessarily going to buy a house or have a down payment on a house. I think that is becoming a reality for more and more people that
mm-hmm.
they at retirement age. I think the other thing is also that you won't pay for a car, or in the South
Go
African
on holiday.
context, two cars. Well, interestingly enough, one of the studies that they did in the UK, and there's this document published around that, and now I forget the name of the um,
Is it the one that you sent to me?
it's the one that I sent you. Um,
Retirement
where
living standards report.
That's correct, retirement living
Pension and
standards.
lifetime savings association.
Correct. And in there, you'll see that they actually take that into account in terms of you know, kind of the lower level, and then the mid level, and then the upper level of lifestyle. And they actually take into account summer holiday and winter holiday, and kind of give you an indication of what they mean by that. Is this 1 week in Europe um, in summer versus 3 weeks in Europe or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there are a lot of assumptions made there. And then I think also what we've seen in the last few years is that a lot of the assumptions that they made about, for example, inflation was very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And a lot of people have been advised based on some of these assumptions. So the assumptions that most people don't necessarily pay attention to when they start thinking or listen to their financial advisor. Now, the first thing about that is understand that the only person with a real interest is the financial advisor. It's not about your safe retirement. It is about how that person is going to pay their rent at the end of the month. It's not about anybody's future. So the assumption is 85 years life expectancy. And I don't know when that was last, I don't know when that was last revised.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose if you look on average, the statistics is probably correct on averages. But individuals that take care of themselves and know their medical history, etc., etc., I mean, everyone has to take that into account for themselves.
Yeah.
Like I said, inflation. I don't think that we are going to see inflation of whatever numbers they have picked for the next decade. I it's we've all experienced over the last year or two how government, and especially in the first world countries, how governments have lied about things like inflation.
Yeah.
Previously, they could get away with it, When they said inflation was 2% and you thought it was closer to 3 or 4%, that was okay. But now they're telling you that it's 5%, but you know that it's 10 or 15%.
Yeah.
So that and also the way that they calculate inflation, they obviously exclude a whole bunch of things that I think, especially as you get older, become a little bit more important to include in your calculation. And then the other thing that I also, in a lot of the retirement planning, just flat out lie to you about is what sort of return on your investment you can expect.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows. So even if you take, because this is like the argument that they always use, the S&P 500, or pick your favorite index, on average over the last 50 years or whatever, as average. So don't look at it year to year, month to month, week to week. Look at it on average.
Mm-hmm.
It has performed at 5%, 6%, 7%, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is in the last 50 years, we haven't really had any significant events, any real significant events that could influence that dramatically. We haven't had any major wars. We haven't had any major catastrophes like we've had in the last year or two or three. We haven't had levels of insanity like we have at the moment. So you have to take those things into account, and then you go, well, it's no surprise that nobody can retire comfortably.
Yeah.
Based on what they were sold 30 or 40 years ago. So what's the solution to that?
I'm hoping you're going to tell me.
No, I'm waiting for you to. I'm waiting for you to tell me, because, first of all, you said that, since your first paycheck, you have had that habit of saving a little bit, which is great, and everybody should do that. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they go, "Oh, I haven't planned and I haven't saved and I'm screwed," and then because they can't save the amount that they think they should, they continue to save nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Whereas, okay, cool, start with something, get in the habit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd like to hear your ideas. If my assumptions are true, that the assumptions that these guys make are not going to get anybody to a safe retirement, what are some of the possible solutions that we can look at?
I'm hoping to win the lottery.
Okay,
That's one of the solutions.
that's what.
So you can maybe take off £10 a month for my lottery tickets.
Okay,
um,
it's one that I didn't have on my list of.
so I have tried to always put the max that you can amount into a pension account with whatever employer I'm with, if they have a pension, and they'll often match what you put in. So I've done that with my current job now, where I'm putting in the max that I can that they'll match. But I have factored that into my calculations for the future, and it doesn't really touch sides. I have a retirement annuity in South Africa that I've still maintained until I can officially financially emigrate. But that, when you convert what's in there to pounds, again, it barely touches sides, doesn't really go anywhere. And I have, obviously, because I pay national insurance, I will have a state pension one day. It'll be available to me in 2055. And that amount is not even a percentage of what my current annual income is. So even factoring all these things in that I've done to prepare for the future, I know I'm not going to have enough money. If I live beyond 84, I suppose maybe I'd make it to 84. I don't know, 85.
That's another shocking statistic is that suicide rates amongst the elderly in the UK is really going up.
Yeah.
And I think that is a direct effect
Yeah.
of people not coping financially.
Yeah.
They are not getting the health care that they expected, that they were told that they would get.
Yeah.
So that's terrible. Anyway, so can I
Anecdotally,
ask?
I see a lot of because I'm on a lot of Facebook groups and things in the area. I see a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s looking for second jobs. So they're still working
Yeah,
their actual jobs, and they're looking for
yeah,
second jobs to try to make ends meet. And these are
yeah,
people who supposedly should be retiring or retired. And what they actually have to do is take on more work.
correct. And as we mentioned, that the retirement age is just going up. So people who expected to retire at a certain age, I can't remember when the last time, but it was last year or the year before. I think in the UK that they upped it to 68 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are people now going, oh, damn, I have to work another whatever. And there's also no guarantee that retirement age won't be upped again in the next year or two.
Yeah.
So, can I ask a couple of questions
Yeah.
about what you mentioned? So, um, you seem hell bent that you are going to retire in the UK. Have,
No, not necessarily.
so, yeah, so
Yeah.
so I think that is a valid question
Yeah.
because there are people. I mean, there are lots of people from all over the world that actually go and retire somewhere else
With a lower cost of living.
with a lower cost of living, with better weather,
Mm.
etc., etc.,
Mm.
because it is more cost effective for them. And so, both from a direct cost point of view, but also from a tax point of view, etc., I think.
Yeah.
Um, So that's one thing to consider. I'm not saying that that's, one has to formulate your plan around the fact that you have to, at age whatever you want to retire, um, now move to a different country. I don't necessarily, but that is an option.
Yeah.
Well, where one can kind of
That's a
do
good
that.
point. I hadn't actually even thought about that.
So so it's interesting. You also mentioned that pension plans and retirement annuities. So these are products specifically geared towards retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these are typically products, if I understand it. By the way, I'm not a financial advisor and I know very little about these things, and I'm not giving any
Not giving
financial
financial
advice.
advice.
Jeez. But the way that I understand it is, well, you get a tax benefit or a tax break
Yeah.
on some of the money that you put
Yep.
into it now. However, knowing the government
You get taxed on
is
it
we
later.
we will get our tax
Yeah, so
at
they're
some
quite
point.
clear about that in this on this HMRC website that this is still a taxable amount when you
Yes.
start getting
Yeah,
it out.
correct.
Yeah.
So So, and it makes sense, and that is one of the ways that it is sold to us is don't pay tax now, put more into this so you get better return, etc., etc. However, um, we don't really know what the return was. We just make an assumption,
Yeah.
and that's the same. That's been for a long time my argument about employer retirement schemes as well. Well, people don't really know what happens to that money.
Yeah.
People don't know where it is. And the assumption is there that there's somewhere in a safe, there's a stack of bills,
Gold bars.
okay, or gold bars, or whatever that is kept safe.
Yeah.
And that is not
False.
true.
Yeah.
It is completely false. But it creates a sense of security with us
Yeah.
because, okay, cool, at least my money was given to somebody responsible and they will
Take
look
care
after
of it
my
for you.
interest.
Yeah.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Um, so that, in my opinion, is. I'm not saying that that is not something one must do, but I'm saying that I don't think one should put all the eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a whole bunch of other ways
Yeah.
that I think one must also look at. So gambling and the lottery is obviously
One of
not
the
one
ways. It is.
that I put on my list because even that £10 a month lottery ticket, I cannot see myself parting with that money um, for
Well, do you
that
think that there's a
purpose.
better way to make more out of that £10 a month that is
No,
certain?
no, you see, but that is not certain at all. I
Yes,
mean,
I
that
know.
is exactly
The one
the
in a
the point.
billion chance, yeah, or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is.
But um, look, I think traditionally people looked at property as one way to accumulate
Hmm.
wealth.
I don't have
So
any
in other
property.
words, yeah, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to acquire property.
Yeah.
Property prices have around the world has gone up so much that and you see more and more people cannot get into the housing market. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months or a year or whatever time frame. There might be um, a big correction.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, traditionally that has been one of the things where people would say, "Oh, okay, cool. We bought the house when we got married or whatever, got our first kind of meaningful um, promotion or whatever, bought a property. Through the life, we kind of once or twice upgraded, sold,
Hmm.
and bought something else, etc. most people have kids that require a little bit more space, etc. And then when the kids leave the house, you would go, okay, cool, maybe we must
Downsize.
downsize a little
Yeah.
bit, which is not happening anymore because the kids don't leave.
Because they can't afford to.
Correct, they can't
Yeah.
afford to. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't afford to.
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, so there's a whole bunch of property that I think must come on the market at some point, for people reaching that retirement age going like, I don't want to live here
Yeah.
anymore. I don't want to, I can't take care of this property anymore. I don't want to sit with that cost or the expenses, the cleaning, etc. And then all of these things will come on the market, and I don't know what's going. Anyway, so
Yeah.
property is one. Maybe, maybe I don't know how doable or how feasible it is, but maybe property in another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I don't know. So again, it's I, I think one of the things that most of us um, were too blinkered, in terms of our planning and thinking about. We didn't think global, and we didn't think
Mm-hmm.
other places in the world other than where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
So obviously there are a multitude of savings products available,
Yes.
um, and I think that's probably something that yeah, look, everybody should.
Well, everyone talks about diversification. I think that's
Yeah,
the
yeah, the diversification, that whole story, and about what is your version of diversification, or what are you comfortable with, etc., etc. But save, save, save. The beauty of compound interest, it is a phenomenal and wonderful thing. Our impatience in the short term versus our commitment to the long term,
yeah.
there's a big mismatch there as well. Um, and then I mean, there are other investments. I mean, stocks and bonds and all of these fancy things. Most of us are not, well, certainly me, I'm not qualified to necessarily say go buy this stock and buy
Yeah.
that stock and so on, which is why we tend to um, gravitate towards things like ETFs and so
Yeah.
on, where smarter people take care of that.
That was my point, is you tend to trust the people who know. And it's like you said, you don't actually know. They're also just trying to cover their rent and plan for their own
Yeah,
future. Um,
yeah.
there's an app that I've
And
actually
the
got.
fees,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
the
because they
fees that they
get.
charge, geez, they,
There's
yeah.
an
Well,
app
which app?
here called Plum, um, and basically it's a savings app. So you put money into your pocket, but it uses AI. It's really interesting, and it works quite well. So it connects to your bank account, and every
Yeah.
week it takes a little bit of money. You can decide whether you want it to be aggressive or not so aggressive, and you can update it as much as you want. So you teach it the kind of amounts that it's allowed to take every week, but it'll sometimes take a little bit more, sometimes take a little bit less, depending how much money is in your bank account that week. um, and it builds up this little pot, and then you can decide on a number of investments or pensions or things that you want to split your pot into. So I've just started testing this app. So you're
Okay.
paying, I think, £2.50 a month for the app, um, to manage your connection to your bank and manage your money. And you can choose where you want it. So I've just picked tech giants as my investment that I'm putting my little bit of money into. And you can see what tech giants is doing at the moment. It's going up and up and up right now.
Mm.
And that's obviously a tech portfolio. When I first put my money in, it just went down for the first week. But I was only putting in a couple of pounds, so I wasn't too bothered about it. But
Yeah.
this is quite interesting because you're kind of just trusting. I don't know. I only put a little bit into the one that I don't know much about. The other one I just save in an interest account. So there's like, you can split. You can say
Okay.
I want 80% in there, 10% in there, 10% here. And I've got a rainy day fund. So every time it rains, which is a lot in the country I live in, it takes
Yeah.
a couple of pounds out of my bank account.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And do they charge nothing other than the £2.50?
Nothing
Surely there
else.
must be other fees.
There's probably a fee when you withdraw. I don't know. I haven't tried to withdraw anything yet,
Okay.
but at the moment, the only fee that I've had to pay is the £2.50 a month for the app. Um,
It'll be interesting to see because obviously the tools and kind of AI, etc., really makes it so much easier for everybody or anybody to
yeah,
get into that habit and be more aware of it. Because traditionally it was a question of you sign the debit order, the money goes off your bank account at the end of the month. Every 3 months, 6 months, once a year, they send you the stack of papers which nobody wants to read
and
anyway.
every 10% increase every year.
Yeah, and when you actually go and dig and you see the fees that they charge and so on, it really becomes a grudge
yeah,
purchase. Um, anyway, so I really like initiatives like the
yeah,
rainy day fund, where it
yes.
actually every time it rains and so on,
Yeah,
it
and you
takes
can tell it what the max amount that you'll allow it to take out of your account, or you never want your bank account to be below £50, or so you can give it a whole
correct.
bunch of rules that it can work
Nice.
around, which is quite fun. So I'm
That's
just
a
I
really
only
clever,
started
yeah.
it a month or two ago, so a month ago I think. So I'm just checking it out.
There's a um, there's an initiative in the US, and I forget the name of it, where the concept, this is actually something that I discussed many years ago with somebody as well in the local context, is why don't we get government involved to open a savings account for every child that is born in the country, every citizen, because there's a registration process.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, every time a child is registered, they do their verification, issue an ID number or whatever it is that issued, automatically open a bank account and deposit 100
Mm-hmm.
of your local currency or 1,000, whatever the case
Mm-hmm.
may be. Government can manage that money up until the age of 18, 21, preferably 25. Um, but imagine that just that single amount has gone in there and accrued interest
Yeah.
over a period of and compound interest. Now, I mean, you can link a whole bunch of other initiatives to that and say, listen, if this child, um, I don't know, finishes primary school, then X gets deposited, secondary school, etc., etc. So you can do it, linked to education. You can
Mm-hmm.
link it to certain other things and so on to kind of boost this. You can allow the parents of that child and the grandparents and the
Yeah.
whoever to deposit into that account. It will make such a difference
Yeah.
to people when you realize the power of that first 10, 20 years of your life that you weren't really kind of paying attention to these things because you have to learn a whole bunch of other things and then set you up, and then there should be other incentives to kind of take that forward. So,
Yeah.
okay, cool. I don't have to withdraw this now to buy a car or to whatever, and to convert that into a pension plan. So, but there's an initiative in the US. One of the one of the big VCs, Alternative Capital, Brad Gerstner, he's got an initiative going, and I think they're really trying to get this kind of concept off the ground.
Yeah.
I can't remember the numbers that they want to start with. Um, just another question about how else can we kind of take care of this saving and so on. Other hard assets than a lottery ticket, gold, silver, crypto.
Yeah.
There's so many of these things out there, which I think should form part of that balanced portfolio
Yeah.
in terms of, kind of um, hedging one's risks in terms of certain sectors can,
Yeah.
because, you know, putting everything into, I mean, you mentioned tech stocks earlier, but tech stocks have been doing extremely well,
Yes.
If you look at the S&P 500, um, I think the top 8% of companies make all the money
Yeah.
and are responsible for the index to look like it's performing well. The others are not. But so we go through economic cycles and so on. So it's good. It's kind of like about getting one's timing right. But it's a very interesting topic, and since you mentioned it, I actually started to think a little bit more about this, which is why I ask questions like other jurisdictions,
Yeah.
and maybe buying property. Um, what other assets can one require? What will be prudent to do in terms of making sure that one has the best possible chance to retire while maintaining a reasonable lifestyle? And I think it goes a little bit further than
Yeah.
than just the amount of money that you have available.
I'm just thinking. Like I hadn't, as I say, I think because I've just moved to the UK and my next 5 years are focused on getting my right to live here,
Yes.
um, that I haven't even considered after that what my next step would be or where I would want to end up.
Mm.
And I also think part of the thinking is that I'd have to work in the UK for the next 30 years to even be eligible for the state pension. But then thinking, is that something that even matters for my future? Is that going to have such a huge impact when I can see that it's not really going to go very far anyway? Or should I be considering other ways of preparing for the future? I
Well,
think,
you
yeah,
see, that's my point. My point
yeah,
is you don't trust the government when they, about a whole bunch of other things that they are doing at the moment.
yeah,
And yet, because this thing is so far in the future, because 30 years in the future, that's quite a long time. You know, and because it hasn't collapsed yet, everybody's trusting in that thing.
yeah,
So, and it's, I fully understand that you think about the next 5 years, this is where I want to be. This is, well, could be the next 20, 30, 50, whatever, how many years. That's where you want to be, and that's fine.
mm-hmm.
I just think that maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice by not at least looking at, well, where else
Yeah,
can I make an investment?
yeah,
It doesn't mean that I have to move to some shithole country just because the cost of living is low.
yeah,
Um, but where the opportunities in terms of you know where one can maximize your return on your investment.
yeah. And I think also maybe one of the things that I do worry about is because I don't have property, I don't own a house, is that I'm always going to need to be able to afford to pay rent unless I had a place that I owned and always had as a backup, because that's always a worry for me is if I lost my job for whatever reason, um, how would I afford rent? Which is a big deal because
It
you
is a
need
big deal,
somewhere to
yeah.
live. Where
Yeah.
maybe I should consider having a property somewhere that I always know I'll have a place to live. Um, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what the answers are to What I do know from personal experiences is the moment you have property, you have responsibilities.
yeah, Well, that is one of the
You have,
reasons I haven't purchased a
yes,
property. It's
correct,
also because I don't know where I'm going to be in the world. It's nice to know that I could leave and go somewhere else and, you know,
correct.
yeah.
And then maybe that thing about, listen, rather than own property, if property is a good investment, you know, what ETFs are there in which jurisdictions
Mm-hmm.
which may actually be worthwhile investing in property through the ETF, and
Yeah.
one doesn't have to buy property directly. I don't know what the answers are, yeah.
So we had spoken about this before about inheritance. That's always a backup plan. But I was on the train yesterday and happened to sit next to these two gentlemen, probably in their early 30s, um, talking about wanting to purchase their first property. Um, and they obviously, I mean, they obviously can't afford it right now. They were talking about what the plan was, how they're going to get a deposit, and um, the one guy said, "I'm not supposed to know this, but my dad told me that when my aunt dies, she's going to leave everything to myself and my brother, and
Wow.
she's got a property that's worth about £600,000." And she's got a couple of other properties. So I know I'll be sorted then, you know, like just talking about his future, which would involves the death of his aunt, and then he'll be sorted.
Yes.
Then his life is fine, you know. And we had you and I had spoken about this thing that some people do plan for their inheritance to be the thing that settles them for life or that gets them through, or and that's quite a scary thought.
Well, now that you mention it, you know, I actually wrote it down on my
Yeah.
list of other options here. I wrote down
Wish
house,
for some people to die.
inheritance, and then savings, you know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, for a lot of people, that is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about previously, you know, as much as we don't necessarily feel it is something that parents should be pressured to make sure that there is an inheritance
Mm-hmm.
for their children. But that is a reality, you know, because if parents die, um, they will obviously leave, hopefully, to their children,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they haven't consumed in their lifetime,
Yeah.
so on. And that can be a massive boost in terms of kind of getting you to that point of
Yeah.
acquiring a property, etc., etc.
Can't it sometimes go the other way? Aren't there situations where parents leave their children in a world of debt?
Um, I'm actually not 100% sure how that works.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. Um, I would almost think that unless children specifically signed
Yeah.
something, that they cannot be held liable
Okay.
for the debt um, of the parents. You know, obviously the estate will typically any financial agreement that you sign basically stipulates that that financial institution, you know, has first right on everything that you own, can potentially own, could potentially ever have owned, etc., etc. You know,
And
to
your
make sure that they,
firstborn.
yeah, to make sure that they get their hands on the money first. You
Mm.
know, but yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting. I think one must think about this in a slightly broader sense than just what's the number, you know,
Yeah.
and what does it look like? How does one get there?
Yeah.
Because it is quite scary to look at a number and go, I can't see how I'm going to get to that number.
Yeah.
Um, and it definitely will require a multi-pronged approach. Fascinating.
Thank you,
I'm gonna
Herman.
look at I'm gonna look into different jurisdictions
Yeah.
for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving your insight and not financial advice, and for posing some suggestions. And it's definitely something that's on my mind. And I'm also going to maybe do a few more
Mm,
spreadsheets with some calculations and try figure out where I am. It's kind of looking at the situation where I am now, where I'd want to be, and how I get there.
yeah,
What can I do to get there? But yeah, thank you for having this chat with me.
thanks. Give us an update. What are you reading at the moment?
Oh, I'm reading All the Light We Cannot See, um, by
Mm.
someone Doer. It's a Netflix
Oh, yeah, yeah.
series at the moment, but I saw the preview for the Netflix series and I thought, oh, this looks really interesting. And then I saw the book and I thought I want to read the book first. So I'm busy reading that. It's a World War II based book about a blind
Oh,
Parisian
okay.
girl. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
Excellent.
cool.
Sounds
What are
interesting.
you reading?
Um, I am busy listening to social justice fallacies by Thomas Sowell.
Okay,
Um, Fascinating.
okay.
A lot of the social justice. It's obviously American focused.
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell being an American, but yeah, and an economist and uh, I think one of the brightest minds of our time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, some really eye-opening statistics that he shares there.
Okay.
Anyway,
I will check it out.
thanks.
Thank you, Herman. Enjoy the rest
Thank
of your
you.
day. Bye.